Okay, year 11s, we're looking at linear equations. You've done linear equations for a long time, so we'll just go over the basics again. With a linear equation, we're looking to have the highest power of x to be a 1. If the highest power of x is bigger than 1, then there are other sorts of equations which we'll look at perhaps later, quadratics and things like that. And when you have a linear equation, there can only be one answer. Okay, so to solve linear equations, we need to have all the terms on one line. Okay, what I'm trying to say there is we need to get fractions removed from the initial question, and to isolate the unknown pronumeral, we have to rearrange the terms. So copy that down if you need to, but when you're ready, come to the next slide. Okay, so again, just to isolate a pronumeral, we have to perform inverses. So if you've got a plus and you want to get rid of it, you have to subtract. If you have a subtraction and you want to get rid of it, you have to add. If you want to get rid of a times, you divide, and to get rid of divides, you times. So that's what the inverses are. And by doing inverses, you can slowly isolate the term. So that's straightforward. And we'll move to the next page when you're ready. Okay, so here's an example. Hopefully you've seen this before. We've got x on both sides. The highest power of x is 1. Okay, so that means the linear, it's going to have one answer. So again, depending on what teacher you've had before, in terms of moving things around, I'll show you the way I do it. You've got x's on both sides. You've got some x's here and some x's here. And I always say take the x's to where there's a bigger number, and then you'll have positive. For instance, if you move 5x across, you'll end up with a negative x, which is okay, but I like having positives. So rather than doing that, I'm going to move the 2x to the right, and once I've moved x's pronumerals one way, then numbers have to go the opposite. So this is the next line. Now, even though I'm moving the pronumerals to this side, I'm just going to switch, in my mind, I'm just going to switch them over. So 5x hasn't moved, so it stays as a 5x, it hasn't changed. But 2x has changed from a plus 2x, so it's going to change to a minus 2x. Equals stays underneath it. The plus 5 here has not moved, but minus 7 has moved, and minus 7 becomes plus 7 because you've done an inverse. And then it's just simplify. So it's got 3x equals 12. And then to get rid of a times 3, you can divide by 3, and you get the answer to be 4. And if you wanted to have a check your answer. So we've got 2 times 4 plus 5 equals 13. And 5 times 4 minus 7 also equals 13. So basically the answer fits in. So that's the left-hand side at the top. That's the right-hand side. And they're equal to each other, which they have to be when you get the answer. But often you don't have a chance to check, but that's what you could do. So copy that if you need to and come to the next slide. Okay, so now we've got some fractions. So we've got denominator 3, denominator 5. So the lowest common denominator is going to be 15. So what I do is I'm going to multiply everything by 15 because that's the lowest common denominator. And what happens is we've already got 3 there. So 3 into 15 goes 5. So that means I need 5 of the first number. And then 5 into 15 goes 3. So that means I need 3 of that. And technically, they're both sitting on top of 15. But then what we do is, if they're both sitting on the same number, they don't have to be there at all. And again, from last year, your teacher might have just said, when you've got just 2 fractions, you can do a cross multiply. So that's another way of doing it. So the 3 crosses over to the x plus 2, and the 5 crosses over to the x minus 1. And then from there, we just expand out. So 5x minus 5, that's a 5, equals 3x plus 6. And changing colours again. So 5x and 3x is smaller, so 3x can move, and then 5 has to go the opposite way. And again, you don't have to show every step. You can do the step in your head, 5x minus 3x. You can do that in your head. And 6 plus 5, you can do that in your head. And so x is 11 on 2. So that answer's fine. You could write 5.5, but it starts getting messy with decimals, especially if you don't get a terminating decimal. If you get a really messy decimal, it's best to leave it as a fraction as long as the fractions cancel down. So copy that down, and when you're ready, come to the next slide. Okay, so now we've got another one with fractions, but this time I've got 1, 2, and I've got 3 terms. So once you have 3 terms, we have to have common denominators all the way across, and we can't do a cross multiply. Or it's best not to do a cross multiply. Okay, so the first thing we do is 1 goes under the 4. So the lowest common denominator of 5, 3, and 1, lowest common denominator is still going to be 15. So this number here gets multiplied by 3. Minus sign comes down. This number here gets multiplied by 5, because 5 3 is a 15. And the last number gets multiplied by 15, because it's sitting on top of 1. And that's where most kids make a mistake. They forget about the number at the end. Okay, then just expand out. Be careful with the minus sign. Be careful with the minus sign. And that's simplify the left-hand side. So 3x minus 5x is minus 2x. Minus 3 minus 10 is minus 13. Is minus 60. So minus 2x, that has to go away. So minus 60 plus 13 is minus 47. And x will equal minus 47 divided by minus 2, because you've got to take the minus 2 across. And so that just equals 47 on 2, which is okay, or you could have it as a mixed number, or you could have it as a decimal. But that answer's fine. Okay, copy that down. When you're ready, let's see what's left. Okay, and the last one, again, is another fraction. This time we've got the pronumerals in the denominator rather than on the top. But again, we're just going to, when you've got just 2 fractions, okay, these are the denominators. So technically, the lowest common denominator is going to be both of those numbers multiplied together. Like last time we had 3s and 5s equals 15. This time it'll be those. But the simplest way is just when you've got 2 fractions, just do a cross multiply. So we've got 3 bracket x plus 1 equals 2 bracket x minus 1, and then just expand like you've been doing. You've got 3x and 2x, so 2x is smaller. 3 goes that way. So 3x minus 2x minus 2 hasn't moved, plus 3 has moved. So 3x minus 2x is 1x equals minus 5, and we don't have to do anything else. Okay, so I think that might be our last slide. So on Moodle, okay, there's the textbook that's at the top, textbook resource, and plus I've put an extra practice sheet. So if you guys if you just do those, make sure you practice the harder ones with the fractions. They're going to be the killers, but after that, that's all we need to do. If you've got time and you want to do some more practice, go back to so if time spare, practice your distance, midpoint, gradients. Okay, thanks, that's it. Bye.